Hey guys, Cameron here from Outdoor Layman, coming at you from the filming studio, aka my garage, to talk to you about two items here. So I have a TLR VR2 with the Villain Weapon System focusing lens, and then I have a Rovivon GL4 Pro with the Villain Weapon System focusing lens. So I'm kind of going to be going over these two, comparing them. I'm going over some different categories and what I think each one beats the other out in. And then at the end, give you some final thoughts and maybe some footage at the end comparing the illuminators, and then which one I would probably go with if I only had to choose one. So starting off, um, I think beam strength, when we're talking about these focusing lenses, is going to probably be the biggest factor for a lot of people. So the GL4 Pro definitely beats out the TLR VR2 in overall beam strength. And again, I'm talking about this with focusing lenses. Everything I say is with that in mind. So yes, it does beat it. It doesn't beat it by a crazy amount, but it does definitely focus it down a bit more. The VR2 is a bit more oval, and it does beat it in distance as well. The GL4 is probably good out to like 400 yards on a really dark night, and then the TLR VR2 is probably more like 250. So that's 1 point for the GL4. The second thing is going to be cost. To me, this is nil. They're both about the same price. I think this will come in around 450 bucks maybe with shipping, and this is probably going to be more like 420 bucks with shipping. So to me, that's a really non-factor. I want to take that into account making your decision. Uh, Feature set, the GL4 Pro wins out on that for I think the sole reason that it has a visible laser on it. A lot of people won't even consider a laser without a visible laser. And me personally, it's not a big deal because I do an infinite zero, so I can just go on my back porch. But if that's something important to you, and I do see the use case of it, then the GL4 Pro definitely wins in that regard. So 1 point to the GL4. Durability, I haven't really seen any durabilities with each of these units, so I'm not going to go too much into that. So let's just call that a draw. The white light are both very comparable on both units. Neither one of them is going to be punching out to like, 200 yards or anything. I mean, really, they're good for like 50 yards and in. So again, I'll call that one a draw. Uh, One thing I think is also important to talk about, so this will be another category, is holsters. I'm going to call that a draw too. Both of them have holster options. So for the TLR VIR2, you can use the Black Hawk Omnivore. You'll have to do some Dremel work, but you can make it work. And there's also the Ragnarok holsters from T-Rex that work with this. The T-Rex Arms Ragnarok holster will work with handguns in this unit. So there are holster options for both. I'm not sure of all the options out there. Those are just the ones I know of. So I'm going to call it a draw if that's an important factor to you. The Switchology, the TLR VIR2 definitely beats out the Rovivon GL4. The GL4 switch is super mushy. It has like this weird thing where a lot of times I'll accidentally leave it on if I click it too quick, because that'll put it on the permanent on mode. The TLR VR2 has a really nice spring in there that allows it to just snap back for momentary on, and then if you want permanent on, you just flip it the other way and it'll stay there. So Switchology definitely goes to the TLR VR2. Bonus context regarding that, this does have the ability to have a tape switch attached to it, so just keep that in mind. I think the XVL2's tape switch works with this, so if tape switches are important to you, then maybe that's a point that goes to this. But in terms of just as a unit stands, the switches on the TLR VR2 get a point. So overall, I think that's 3 points to, or excuse me, 2 points to the GL4 and 1 point to the TLR VR2. So if I only had to go with one unit, I would probably use the GL4 just because it beats it out in those categories. But if there's certain categories that you think are more important, the answer may be different. So that's my personal opinion. I'd go with the GL4. Now, I'm going to add some more context onto this. rifle versus pistol. So that's when we're going to talk about the villain weapon system caps again. So the GL4 rides higher naturally than the TLR VIR2. So you actually cannot use the TLR VIR2 with the focusing lens unless it's all the way at the end of your rifle. So it has to hang over the end of the rail. Otherwise, the bottom of this lens is going to make contact with your rail and you're not going to be able to get the unit on there. The GL4 doesn't have that problem, so you can run it a few inches behind where your rail ends, and it just gives you more options of where to run it. And also, if you're not running suppressed, like if you have a compensator on, you may not want the end of this thing hanging off the end, because I don't necessarily think a damage will happen, but it probably will get cloudy. So for rifle use, I think the GL4 is the way to go for that if you want to run the unit a little bit farther back for whatever setup you're running. So that's an overview of the two units. They're both very similar. So like at the end of the day, if you think one will look cooler on your gun, I think you could just use that as the deciding factor. They're both going to offer similar performance. So yeah, I'll run some footage here at the end, and you can see how the units compare under night vision, the illuminators, specifically the Holosun LS321 versus the TLR VIR2 with the focus lens, and then the GL4 with the focus lens. I'll have some commentary over that. So I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, put them below, and I'll do my best to answer them, but I appreciate it. Thanks.
So I'm going to be talking over this and speaking to exactly what you're looking at. So this first clip is just going to be the GL4 Pro with nothing on it, so how it comes. No focusing lens or anything, and you can see it's very floody. Illuminates everything in the PVS-14 picture, whether it's close or far, and it's pretty powerful. It does reach out to distance, but it's just not focused at all. And that farthest tree line there is around 250 yards away. So this next clip here, this is just the focusing lens as is. It doesn't have the spacer in it, so this is the full power of it, and you can see it does focus it down to that square, and it's pretty easily able to reach out to that 250 yards. And this is in an urban environment with a lot of dynamic lighting. Now this is also the GL4 with the focusing lens, but it has that spacer in it, so you can see it's a bit more tame, not by much, but you can see that circle around it gives it more of a traditional laser aiming unit shape, even though the square is still pretty apparent. Again, this is pretty bright with urban lighting, so it's getting past those photonic barriers out to like 250 yards. Up next is the TLR VIR2 with the focusing lens. Again, this is a bit bigger of a pattern. It's more circular. It definitely brings the floodiness of the VIR2 into a more focused beam, and it's reaching out there, but not quite as pungent as the GL4 Pro with the focusing lens was. So now we're looking at the Holosun LS321, and this is, I'd say it's definitely the least powerful of all of them. You really can't see it out to 200 and past 200 yards, but it's a clean illuminator, so that's a good kind of base point for comparison.